Hi, I'm Valerie Lauer, and I'm a college graduate student, and I teach kindergarten through sixth grade special education. I teach within West Des Moines Community Schools, and the project that I have focused on this year is video modeling paired with positive reinforcement for the generalization of social skills to multiple school settings with elementary students with intellectual disabilities. A challenge that I come across every day is students that have inappropriate behavior and then in turn their academics suffer because of their challenging behaviors that are inappropriate. Their behaviors can interrupt classroom instruction and then they're not getting that academic instruction that they need because there's a lot of behavior that is being redirected rather than focusing on the academic side of school. So these students often can have academic failure due to their behavior. Within social skills instruction, I'm expected to teach students how to behave appropriately, and this could be simply as having respectful behavior, staying on task, and communication instruction with collaborating with peers, and just interacting with them in general. And a lot of these skills are so easy for other students, but is really hard for the students that I worked with, so they really need that explicit instruction. Um, for me, the reason why I wanted to dig into this is I needed to be able to create engaging social skills lessons, but also make sure that what I'm teaching my students is generalizing from my classroom to their grade level classroom, other areas of the school, such as the lunchroom, recess, some of those unstructured times and areas of the day that are really difficult for them. And then also, these skills can transfer to home, daycare, and other community settings such as the library, the pool, their sports practices. Some interventions that I have looked into were modeling and video modeling. They're both evidence-based strategies. The modeling would just be live and in person. The videos would be done up ahead of time, and then students would watch the model, whether it's a video or just in the moment, and then they would mimic that skill. Um, if you do it in a video format, it's a lot more convenient and it's very motivating for students because there's technology involved and you can play the video at any time, which allows for a lot of repetition. Another intervention that I looked into was positive behavior intervention supports, also known as PBIS. These really target behaviors to decrease inappropriate behaviors and increase the appropriate behaviors. Within PBIS, there are three tiers of support. Tier one is the universal strategies. A lot of schools use PBIS tickets, and then students are able to cash them in for different prizes or different types of free time. Tier two strategies are more specialized for a smaller group of students, and it's typically not for students that are within special education with a behavior goal. But once you move into tier three, those supports are more individualized, they're very intense, and need to be able to last a long time. And there's a lot of assessment data that goes into this. And typically, an IEP team designs the intervention along with a behavioral specialist. Another type of positive reinforcement that is within a lot of the behavior plans that I create with my team is token economies, and we award tokens for the presence of targeted behaviors or if there's an absence of a particular behavior, but we always, as much as possible, try to use that replacement behavior, which is that positive behavior. Students are able to cash in tokens for reinforcers like free time that can involve technology, coloring. Students can buy things just like little trinkets, anything that makes a little noise they love, and any other items that they prefer. I usually just ask them what they want and they tell me, and we make it happen. Um, Within the token economies, ahead of time, you're going to want to think about what the expectations are and what and how and why students will earn those tokens needs to be decided in advance. So a student could get tokens for every time they display the replacement behavior. And that could be having safe hands and feet. Every 30 seconds you have safe hands and feet, you get a token. Individualized tokens for students I've done based on their interest. I had a student that was really interested in Thomas the Train, so he had little Thomas tokens for his token economy. Another type of intervention I looked at was a comprehensive approach, and it utilized 4 different interventions, and then there were fabulous results with this. They started at 0% appropriate behavior, and then by the third intervention, it went up to 29%. And then at some of the last interventions, it went to 100% appropriate behavior. And this is kind of where I decided to gear my study was to a more comprehensive approach. Within the research gap that I was noticing is there weren't a lot of combined treatment approaches. So that was something I wanted to think about when designing my research study. And then there wasn't a lot of research about generalizing skills taught during social skills and how they could transfer to other areas of that student's life, whether it's just in their second grade classroom, the lunchroom recess, soccer practice, the library, things they do at home. And then my question became, what strategies would be best to increase the instructional time with students with those behavior challenges and then could help them academically in the best way to measure that I thought was through reading fluency. So I decided to use a combined treatment approach of video modeling and positive behavior supports and see how that could impact reading fluency and appropriate behavior among elementary students with intellectual disabilities. My hypothesis was how could that impact reading fluency and um, reading fluency and see how their targeted behavior could either increase or decrease. My variables were video modeling and positive behavior supports, and then my dependent variable was the frequency of targeted behaviors and then those reading fluency scores. I chose to do an ABA research design because I had a low number of participants and each phase was 3 weeks. I had 5 students in various grades through kindergarten through 4th grade. I only had 1 female and 4 males. All my students were in special education with an intellectual disability. They all had goals, IEP goals, and behavior. 3 had autism. 1 was diagnosed with ADHD and ODD, and then 1 was undiagnosed. 4 participants were white and 1 African American, 1 student on free and reduced lunch, and they were all served in a suburban community in the Midwest. I created all the videos on my iPhone, then uploaded them to my Google Drive. The videos that I then shared with the individuals to their Google accounts, and then they could view them on iPads or Chromebooks provided by the school within their individual account so they could only see their video and it was more confidential. I collected behavior on white paper, on 8.5 by 11-inch white paper. I collected reading fluency scores. My kindergartner was different with letter sound fluency because he wasn't a reader quite yet, and then my other students were on 1 minute fluency passages. My 4th grader was on the 1st grade one because he was so discrepant from peers. Other materials, all of these were things that were within their behavior plans. Token economies, those personalized tokens that I talked about earlier, Tiger tickets that are whole school use, tangibles that they could earn, and then visual schedules. Within my first baseline, it was 3 weeks. We ran behavior plans like normal. We did include positive reinforcement, but we weren't targeting specific behaviors that were within the video modeling. Within my treatment phase, um, the first week there was an adult modeling in the video. Then the next 2 weeks it was the students in the video after they had practiced in the first week. And then we used positive reinforcement that targeted the behavior that was in the video modeling. Then baseline 2, only positive reinforcement was used, and we continued to collect data to determine if behavior was generalized and also sustained during this phase. And we collected reading data weekly as well. We collected reading data weekly, and then behavior data was collected at least weekly, if not daily, and then I used the average behavior score to come up with that weekly data point. My data analysis was I used a dependent t-test for reading fluency scores, and then I wanted to see if there was an increase or decrease in individuals within the reading and behavior, so I used profile plots for individual reading and individual behavior. As you can see, there wasn't a significant change within their literacy scores, since the p-value is greater than 0.05. There wasn't a significant change, and the scores on average decreased by 5 words per minute. My kindergartner wasn't included in the dependent t-test, again, because he was doing letter sounds versus words on that 1 minute fluency passage. He was able to increase his words correct, or his letter sound correct per minute within the treatment phase. So I would say that the treatment phase, what he was most successful, and then we wanted his behavior of elopement to decrease. So he was very successful with the combined treatment approach. And then he kind of wavered in that baseline, that second baseline. My second grader, his reading scores remained about the same, and then we wanted his behavior to decrease. So he was kind of all over the place in that first baseline, the lowest during treatment, and then he was somewhat able to maintain the behavior within the second baseline. Not as successful as we would have wanted, but definitely better than the first baseline. My third grade girl, her reading remained about the same and was a little lower in the second baseline. In her behavior, she had off-topic blurts during her math block. When we implemented the data sheet in the baseline, her blurts decreased quite a bit and then decreased a lot in the second baseline. With my other third grader, his reading stayed about the same, then fluctuated more in the third baseline. We wanted his behavior to increase, so it was sustained very well in the second baseline. Again, it was only one bathroom request, so not a lot of change, but a little bit went a long way with him. And then my fourth grader, his reading really increased during the treatment phase and then was a little higher in the second baseline, and then his behavior we wanted to increase, and he did really well during the treatment and did pretty well sustaining it in the second baseline. Overall, I would say video modeling was an effective strategy for teaching replacement behaviors. It was good for demonstrating the skills, and then the students were able to utilize the video to be able to then imitate it, which relates directly to social learning theory. You watch something happen and then you do it. And then it was very motivating for students to see themselves in videos, and they were able to get a lot of repetitions in with watching the video and then practicing the skill. Positive reinforcement was really helpful to maintain some of those behaviors in the second baseline. And then the token economies were helpful in teaching the skill and then also maintaining the skill, and they were used in all the phases. Students, I think, would do really well with the combined treatment approach. They learn the new skills, and then the positive reinforcement helps them learn the skill and then maintain it. And then it's very engaging with the technology with the video modeling. All teachers could really use video modeling with students to teach skills, teach some of those routines and procedures at the beginning of the year, give positive reinforcement to maintain all those skills. It's easy to play multiple times a day, and it's good for reteaching. Parents can teach routines and behaviors in the home with it. And then I would encourage administrators to consider it as a universal strategy to teach students throughout the whole school some of those routines and procedures, especially at the beginning of the year. And then some of the limitations were the short time frame. Participants weren't able to use strategies as long to see if the intervention would impact their reading skills. It did not include one of the participants' reading scores because he wasn't a reader quite yet. And then the study occurred in the winter, and there were a lot of absences between the participants and then also the staff. And then there were a lot of interruptions in routines. Suggestions for further research would to try it in another season, have it longer than 9 weeks, and also use as a whole school of students in general education